Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning to all. Alright, this is my second time to Chiang Mai. My first time around was 40 years ago when I was like 10. So I wouldn't remember anything, but I remember taking pictures with the children from the mountains. And you had to pay to get, to get pictures with them. So that's the only thing that I remember. Alright, I'm from University Science Malaysia in Penang. So before I begin my presentation, a quick intro. University Science Malaysia is one of the global regional center of excellence for education for sustainable development, and it was established, the university was established in 1969. And we are University in a Garden, and if you've been there, there's one student of mine, so she can attest to that. And our vision and mission surrounds the transforming of higher education for a more sustainable tomorrow, right? And this is another view, the rare red eagles making USM their home. So this is quite recent, in the last 10 years. So they have made USM as their home. And red eagles only make their nests in a clean air environment. So you won't find red eagles in the city center or things like that. Alright? So before we begin, I'd like to thank Anthony for his presentation yesterday because he has defined so many things. So I felt now at least I can go on without defining what is revitalizing and enriching and so forth. But I'm going to go straight to SNS, social networking sites. What is SNS? According to Boyd and Ellison, this is a web-based, this definition was made way back in 2007. It's a web-based service that allows individuals to construct a public or semi-public profile, articulate a list of other users, and the third one is view and traverse their list of connections. And we know since 2007 things have changed quite drastically. So I would like to, this is my own definition, I would like to define in terms of the features of SNS, what it's able to do. So the first one is identity. A social networking site should be able to give you that. That means you are able to create your own profile. The second one is share and modify the artifacts, your ideas, your views. So with the use of SNS, you must be able to share and modify. The third one is socialize, where you can socialize one-to-one, as in private message me, or one-to-many, right? So that's the other one. And of course, communicate, you have collaborate. The other one is community and groups. That means your social networking site must be able to have this facility of enabling the creation of community and groups, right? And then for a purpose. Now, for example, my own Facebook, I have a certain purpose of maintaining my Facebook, right? I have two types of accounts. One is for my professional purposes, and one is for my personal. But then later I found out that it's a bit troublesome, cumbersome to keep them both together. So I just stick to one, which I mix both the professional and personal sometimes. In the 2012 US election, Obama won because how he and his team used Facebook. So for different purposes, and I know a lot of my colleagues and my friends who are doing online marketing and online sales through Facebook. That's another. So depending on the purpose, why you want to maintain social networking sites. And the last one is you must be able to control and manage. If you are not able to control and manage, then it's a bit difficult because this is where you need to be, you'll be able to block someone or you allow anyone and everyone to be part of your community. So This is my definition, and I feel this definition is much more flexible, fluid, and dynamic in the sense that it gives more room for social networking sites to be defined. And there are literally hundreds of categories of social media, and this diagram just depicts one of them. It's countless, and I'm pretty sure the next 5 years we will have more and more, right? But let me just give you some examples of SNS categories. For example, education. Under the category of education, we have SNS like Edmodo, PlanSpace, TeacherTube. These are one example. And then for socialization, you have Facebook, we have Mixi in Japan, you have AppNet, Nextdoor. Video, you have the YouTube, you have Vimeo, and so forth. Career research and academia, you have LinkedIn, ResearchGate, academia. And mobile chats, you have WhatsApp, Telegram, WeChat, and Line. So these are the sum of the categories, and you can see in each category there are different types of SNS. Right? Now I'm going to introduce some statistics. I think we can learn a great deal of stuff from statistics, right? Now this is the number of social network users worldwide from 2010 to, they're predicting up to 2021. This is from Statista, right? And if you look at the, I don't know if you can see this, but for 2018, 2.62 billion users, right? But you have to bear in mind that different statistics sites, they give different numbers. Some say 3 billion, some say 4 billion. So I'm going with this. And then the most popular social network worldwide as of January 2018. So Facebook is still there, despite Mark Zuckerberg going some troublesome time with the law. He is still going strong with his Facebook, right? So with 2.167, followed by YouTube and then WhatsApp, right? Number of users in Thailand in terms of internet, and you can see the number is steadily increasing. And in 2018, it is like 41.57, not billion, million, right? So, and even in Malaysia, the number of internet users and social media sites, they are increasing as well. Now, what is very interesting, very unique about Thailand, when I was doing this sort of like review research, I found out that they are not so much mobile compared to other countries. In Malaysia, we are more mobile, meaning to say we use our handphones. But if you see the data, you can see that Facebook, we are computers, the desktop. The other one is Google, and everything, the Twitter, they are more often used on the PCs rather than their handphones. So I'm wondering why. So this is something different. So perhaps my Thai colleague would like to, take it up further. So this is something which kind of puzzled me. I mean, usually it's the phones which will be the main source of you accessing to the social networking sites. Now, SED is social engagement benchmark. And it's very surprising that Southeast Asia dominate the top 10. At least we are doing something right in this. So Indonesia is number 2. The first obviously is China. Indonesia is number 2. Vietnam number 4. Philippines number 5. Malaysia at number 7. Thailand at number 9. But our Singaporean friends are way down there at number 22. But I would like to just point out one thing, is just that if you see the non-Western countries are basically dominating. The Chinese, of course the Indonesian, the Vietnamese, and as well as and US is quite way down below. Right? So this is another unique thing which I thought should be highlighted as well. Now I tried to look for the stats for the world population, but I couldn't find it in a short time. So what I managed to find is the US, because I postulate that the teens are the ones who would be using these social networking sites. And what they use is very much important in the terms of what kind of teaching and learning that we can prepare for them when the teacher is using the SNS. All right, here YouTube seems to be, and you can see that Facebook is way down below, right? And YouTube and Instagram are the two most highly used. And I'm looking at these statistics, I'm very much inclined to do a Southeast Asian study, a pure academic study. These are very much based on statistics, So, I mean, you can always come up to me later, and if you're interested, a pure research base, trying to find out the practices and uses of SNS, both the students and the teachers, right? Okay, so what do these statistics actually tell us? What do they tell us? Number one, this is basically, SNS is entrenched into our daily lives, and in future, the impact is going to be even greater, I believe, right? Number two, now, I've been hearing this many, many years ago, that Facebook will go down, and with the current problems that Facebook is having, but they are still there. They are still there. And I don't think for the next few years they're going to go down, because it is very, very popular. And it's widely used for some of the reasons which I will explain later on. And this is where it is related to us. I think it is also, the statistics also do indicate to us that there's a huge potential in terms of education in general, and of course, English language teaching and learning. So now I'm going to bring to some of the early works related to SNS and ELT. Now, one of the earlier ones was by Godwin Jones. I hope I pronounced his name right. All right, 2008. Logical to leverage the current student generation heavy reliance on SNS. So that to imply that now is the time for you to use the sites, the SNS for language teaching and learning. And one of the earliest, I would say the first publication in the world, actual publication, research-based publication, is by Bosch, based in the South African context. And they actually looked at the use of Facebook, the teaching and learning in that particular university. So, how did I come into this area? Well, it all started in 2009 when I actually attended JSAT in Sapporo, right? And Mark Washer, I hope I pronounced his name right again. He was giving a keynote entitled Teaching for Global Literacy. And he pointed out, he was presenting on the use of computer-mediated communication for teaching the language, the English language. And he touched on everything, Wikipedia, he touched on blogs, but at that time he didn't say anything about Facebook, So in the Q&A, I got curious and I asked, what about Facebook? And he said, no, so it's a socialization space, and it's more of it's not a learning tool for the teaching and learning of English. And that got me, I kind of was very curious, why not? So the question of why not? So I went back immediately after the conference and I initiated this research at my university, and it was published there. And the findings do indicate that students do use for incidental kind of learning. Alright, so it's not a planned and structured learning, but they learn it on their own, and some do actually communicate with the native speakers so that they can be better users of the language. So I did find that. So that's where it all started, and I thought, okay, so this is something useful that can be used by the students. So since then, since the 2009 and so forth, abundance of research on the use of SNS for language teaching and learning has been done. They focus on different languages, they focus on different skills of those languages, reading, writing, vocabulary, and so forth. And the thing is, researchers have paid more focus on Facebook than any other SNS. Why? I think there are two reasons. Number one, because it's the most popular and it has the highest number of users. Now, if I were to ask you, let's just do a random survey. How many of you have Facebook account? Can I see hands? All right. Twitter. So it's getting lesser and lesser, right? So that is one crude data just to indicate, how popular Facebook is, even though there are rumors, I would call rumors, saying that Facebook is going down, but it's not. The other reason is because it has features, many of the features that can be manipulated for teaching and learning, which some of it I will touch later on. All right? Right, so based on the research that I've done, as well as the teaching, my own experiences of planning, implementing, researching and publishing on the use of SNS for ELT, as well as supervising. So a lot of my master's and PhD students, they are exploring the use of Facebook for teaching and learning, right? So I thought, okay, since a lot of research has been done and people are using, why not come up with the framework that will allow teachers to carefully think about the use and how that could be integrated into their daily teaching and learning. Alright, these are some of the PhD and master's theses which have been completed. Number one is the use of Facebook for meaning making in reading. Just to give you an oversight, okay, the kind of research that have been done that I've derived, that I have used in the formulation of the framework. And she was looking at how students, secondary school students, can actually use Facebook to help them in the process of meaning making, because her students had problem understanding the reading materials that was prescribed to them, especially for MUET examination, Malaysian University English test. Alright? The other one is oral presentation with the help of Facebook, a survey, and using an open group to generate ideas on speaking topics, right? So these are some of the theses which have been done. And the framework is a pedagogical base as well as a research base. That means it's data driven. A lot of pedagogies I have extracted and I've integrated as part of the framework. And a lot of this data have been verified, not directly, but in the form of Viva examinations, blind reviews, which are done by the journal reviewers. And it's the most important thing to remember that it's still in progress, so it's not a final one. So the first element, I will show you the framework later on, so I need to describe what are the elements in the framework. So the first element is the need, preferences and interests, which I find is very important. Students have their own needs, their own liking in terms of the SNS that they use. And I did an international study with my colleagues from Japan, Indonesia, Bangladesh and Maldives regarding how students use Facebook for learning of English. And this is what I find quite interestingly. They use Facebook or different features of Facebook for different purposes. For example, the Japanese learners are very much focused on learning new vocab and on their communication skills when they are on their Facebook, right? The Maldivians, they prefer chatting through the messengers, so hopefully they can get better at writing and communication as well. The Malaysians on writing, so Malaysians are more like, okay fine, you give me whatever tools in Facebook as long as we can improve our writing. And the Indonesians, they need to change their attitudes towards learning English. So these are the different things that come up from that research, indicating, you have one SNS, but it is viewed differently and it's used differently by different people. So when we identify, for example, if you're going to use Facebook or whatever SNS for your classroom teaching and learning, I think the first thing that we need to do is do a needs analysis. What are their interests? What are their liking? Whether they prefer Facebook compared to YouTube or the other way around, or are there any new SNS that is, sometimes the kids know far more better than us. Alright, so that was the first one. The second one is planning of activities, and I have divided into 4 sections, if you call it. The first one is aligning syllabus. And it's very important that in the process of you planning teaching and learning activities, you need to align the syllabus and what you're going to do in the Facebook environment. Alright? So number 1, for example, you must have clear instruction for the learners. And you need to ensure that everybody understands what they need to do. And sometimes we get it wrong in the sense that we try to do or achieve everything. If you have 5 learning outcomes, for example, you want to achieve all 5 learning outcomes with the use of Facebook. That is not possible. So you may want to identify the most is 2 or 1 and use and focus on that, rather than trying to achieve all the learning outcomes. And you need to use it as a supportive learning environment and not the main source of teaching and learning, right? And in terms of activities, you need to design activities that are both structured and unstructured. Structured here means that you ask them certain learning activities that they need to do, right? And you can also give them some freedom to do the unstructured things. They can post in their own ideas, whatever that is related. Okay, so that is aligning the syllabus. Next is maximizing the features of social media. So we need to design activities that integrate and utilize, if possible, all the features. I know that it's not possible, so if you can utilize as many features as possible. For example, in WhatsApp, you have the document, you have the camera, you have the gallery, audio, location, and contact. So how can you use these features to achieve that learning activity, to facilitate that learning activity? If you're just going to use, let's say, just chatting without actually using the others, then I think you're not utilizing the environment, the WhatsApp environment to the fullest. Excuse me. Now, the idea of you using as many features as possible so that you can create and share different types of artifacts. Okay. One of my students, he for his master's work, he wanted to use Facebook, but he wanted to keep it as a closed group. We need to say only for the students and not for the public. But then if you're going to do that, how is it different from the same classroom whereby all your students are there? How is it different? What's the point of you having that network, right? So I told him, no, you need to leave it open. So this was a group of pre-university students, and they need ideas, and they, in their national exam, WET, Malaysian University English Test, one of the components is speaking. And in that speaking component, they have to generate ideas. So my student, he had his own circle of friends, including engineers and doctors. And one of the topics that he posted was on an issue of medicine. And the good thing was, the doctor, he had one doctor friend, so without prompting, he voluntarily joined in and posted some ideas, which was very beneficial. So this is what it means by the social capital. That means you need to use your existing networks to empower the students, rather than creating a new one. You're starting from zero. So you need to allow students to tap on their existing contacts and resources on Facebook, for example, right? And build upon those existing networks so that they are able to co-learn with others, right? Not others from the same classroom or the same group of students, but outside the community. I do understand the issue of security. So I think the issue here is, if you're dealing with university students or senior high school students, then I think you can give them that freedom. If you're dealing with primary, so maybe you need to think other measures so that you can control, so that there are no intruders, right? So for university students and senior high school students or college students, I think it's perfectly safe. Right. The fourth one is the use of that site as a resource center, meaning to say, students should be able to use that social networking site as a resource center. That means they are able to create and share. So again, this is also part of maximizing the features of an SNS, right? So by creating and sharing, you are actually developing a community of practice. Now, so the third component is the assessment and reflection. So when we are using social networking sites, this one component is very important and cannot be ignored. And I would like to suggest, based on my experience and as well research, assessment and reflection. So you can interchange whether you want to use assessment or use reflection as a form of assessment. Okay? And of course, if you're at the university level or college level, then allocating grades and marks will be very much appreciated by the students. So assessing the entire social networking site as an e-portfolio, which is something like a project-based learning, or assessing specific learning elements that are found, which are the artifacts which are found in that particular community of practice. So it's up to you. You want to do both, or depending on your learning outcome, what is it that you want to achieve? All right? And then assessing of self-assessment. That is something not many are doing. Meaning to say, what learners perceive of what they have learned. This is the concept of reflecting on reflections. Something which I've done way back in 2007, and I'm introducing it into the social networking sites. This is the framework. I don't know if you are you able to see at the back? Yes? Okay, thank you. Right. So we start with the top, needs, interests and preferences of the students. Once you have identified that, then you can plan your activities. And these activities, learning activities, preferably is based on the 21st century learning. You have the creativity, collaboration, communication, and critical thinking. And under this planning of activities, those are the four things that we discussed just now. Aligning the learning outcomes, the social maximizing the features of SNS, the social capital, and using the social networking site as a resource center, right? And then, as part of planning of the activity, there must be a connection, your activities with the assessment and reflection. So whether you're going to use the reflection or assessment or both of them is not an issue, but how you use them, that's the main thing. The whole idea of this, so that you can give a meaningful, experiential, authentic learning for the learners, right? So this is how, and then the community of practice. So for most of my classes, this is the framework that I use. So I will make sure that I have these four elements, okay, together in place. And then I try to fulfill as closely as possible. There are times where I'm not able to, depending on the learning outcomes, but I try to. So now, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to demonstrate briefly what I've done with my own class using this framework. Okay. Right, so this is a class whereby I'm using Facebook. I'm teaching this group of students. Group of students, first years, who are going to be future English language teachers. And they come from different backgrounds. And one of the issues is them having the confidence to go in public and, and make public speaking or communicating with others. So that's a major issue. So I try to use eFacebook as a e-portfolio and to help them with the use of the SNS Facebook as a formative assessment and learning, right? So that they focus on the process of learning and not the outcome. And basically, the whole idea is to encourage communication, collaboration, creativity, and the critical thinking, which is needed. And it was done as a form of blended learning and to showcase their learning and development, right? So these were how the Facebook was used, the SNS was used. And the project, so these are the name of the course is Oral Skills for TESOL, PET 102, 53 first year students. This is the aim. It's 100% coursework. Like I said just now, a full blended learning was utilized, meaning to say different learning approaches and methods, different learning platforms, including the SNS, different learning environments, different assessment, and different learning tools and platforms. So the use of SNS actually allowed me to do this. Without the SNS, it will be rather limited. Right? And it was framed by 21st century learning. Right? So this is the Facebook group that I created. And you can see the students are all in their animal mode. So they have to, one of the tasks was to them to become an animal and do the voice modulation. So they have to create their costumes. And these costumes, since we are Regional Center for Sustainable Development, so all the costumes were made from discarded materials or waste. So I did not allow them to buy or professionally had them made. So the whole idea is for them to be creative, right? So this is the Facebook group for them. So what I did, they had different activities: individual presentation, monologues, pair presentations, work group, class project, reflection on e-portfolio, and they must reflect on what they have done, whatever activities that they were involved, at least once a week, and do a report, overall report. So this is just to give an example of a dashboard for one student, right? So don't worry, I also have obtained permission to use some of the pictures here. So, and based on that, I did a study, a mixed method study, using quantitative and qualitative data, right? Two sources of data, a questionnaire and a reflective report. And the students were the respondents. Basically, I wanted to know what kind of learning experiences that the particular SNS afforded them. You know, how did they learn, what did they gain, and so forth. And this is, well, the findings are rather straightforward. You know, everybody's saying, it's all good and everything. So that is rather normal. But I'm more interested in the qualitative data, right? So I'm going to highlight you some. It's very interesting, with the use of SNS, they are actually able to see the end and understand the objective of the course. Right? So if you are able to integrate the activities accordingly, taking into account some measures, then you can achieve that in terms of achieving the learning outcomes. Right? Another student said that Myself feel I have changed, I have become more confident as a person, and have broadened my horizon and not remain narrow-minded. Another student. So, according to this student, it turns out to be the process of sharing that helps one to be rich in knowledge. So the process of sharing is very important. So if you are able to maximize the use of the features, then you can facilitate the actual sharing processes, right? It helped me to be being engaged in a meaningful learning. This is the other students. These Facebook activities also act as a source of reference. This is where the entire SNS functions as a resource center. Because once you ask your students to create and share artifacts, other students are able to share. Other students are able to learn from what other people have shared and reflect upon it. Right? So, I like this. So meaning to say, I'm on the right track in the sense that the learning outcomes were better achieved for this course compared to the others. So they are able to see, because for each semester, they register for 3 or 4 courses. And the fact that this student highlighted that, he or she is more able to see the learning outcomes. So that gives me a sense of pleasure. In the right way though. Alright, so that was the demonstration. So what I can conclude is that the integration of framework, I think you may not agree with my framework, that's not the issue. The issue here is, do you have a framework of your own that is based on certain theoretical understanding or research data that you can build and you rely upon that particular framework to integrate your learning activities. That is important. Rather than blindly and without having no basis of creating those activities. That is important. I'm not asking you to believe totally in what I'm saying, the framework. What I'm asking you to do is have a framework before you start integrating those activities. I think a lot of these negative findings occur as a result of no use of proper framework in the creation of activities and integration of SNS for teaching the language. So if you can have that, then I think you are better prepared as a researcher as well as a teacher. Then you can anticipate what are the challenges, what are the hindrances that you may face during the course of your lessons. Alright? So self-awareness and self-assessment of learning. So what I found that this framework allows the students to be self-aware and reflecting of what they are learning. Okay? And this is very important. I don't believe in what the students learn, but I'm more prone to believe how the students learn and how do they rationalize their learning. I think that is important. Because if they are able to do that, then they are very critical learners rather than just accepting what they have learned. Questioning, And the fact that sometimes they do work independently, and in most times they do work collaboratively, because the way I've integrated the activities is that I've structured in a way that you have individual work, you have pair work, you have group work, you even have a class project. So they learn at different levels. They learn independently, they learn collaboratively, cooperatively, and that allows them to solve problems together, and that is very, very important. In the sense that it gives them the confidence, okay, I can do this, I can do this. But if you're going to do everything is alone and by themselves, they're going to be lost. That's the other thing, that when you are in the SNS and you are creating activities that requires them to work individually, that defeats the whole purpose of SNS. You're supposed to network, collaborate, but then you're giving individual isolated works. So how is it meaningful? It does not fulfill the very existence of SNS. Okay? Alright, so in terms of research, these are the areas which are still new. You know, if you want to do research and publication with the use of SNS for ELT, e-portfolios, still very new. English language teacher education, how Facebook you can use for English language teacher education, and professional development. It's a huge area, not many publications still. And hopefully the use of such a framework will allow the enrichment of learning, especially on behalf of the learners. Right? So these are some of the references that I've used. Alright? So thank you. I think I'm early.